Good morning and welcome to this week's vlog. Now, this is actually the third time I've been out since the whole lockdown thing was eased and shielding's been paused. But I'm actually going to release this before the other two, so don't tell future me, which is actually past me, but don't tell the me that goes out the first time that I've already been out and stolen his thunder. Cheers. I'm actually out in a field in rural Hertfordshire today. I think it's Hertfordshire. I'm just outside a small village called Nettleden, and the reason that I'm here is because there's a gorgeous lone tree that I've come to take a photo of. But the reason that I'm releasing this vlog before the other two from when I was actually out previously is because I want to talk to you about my new camera. Now, if you've been following my channel for any period of time, you'll know that I've always been a Canon shooter. Well, actually that's a lie. When I very first got into photography, I had a Panasonic G2, but I very quickly sold that and moved on to a Canon Rebel T3i, I think it was. I think it was a 550D possibly. And then I moved on to a 7D for a while, and then a 70D, and then eventually a 5D Mark III. And the 5D Mark III is the camera that I've used on every single one of my landscape vlogs. And it's a camera that I absolutely loved, and I didn't see any reason why I would ever move away from shooting Canon. But when I went out earlier on this year to Wales, I went to Barmouth and had a few issues with the camera, and it wasn't working, and I think the contacts got a bit moist and caused the camera some issues. And ever since then, I kind of lost faith in it. I lost faith in its abilities, and I lost a bit of faith in whether it was actually, working as I wanted it to or not. And then obviously with lockdown, I didn't have a lot of chance to take it out and test it or do anything with it. But the more that I sat with it, the more that I wasn't quite sure about it, and the more I thought, well, you know what? I'm not going out anywhere while we're in lockdown, and I really need to, think about, is this going to be one of the few opportunities that I've got to actually get myself a new camera? And I decided to take the plunge. And after a lot of soul searching and actually, a lot of doubt as to whether I should, move away from Canon, because I'd always been with Canon, I decided upon the Sony. So I'm just starting to get some really beautiful colour in the sky behind me there, but I'm not shooting behind me, I'm actually shooting across. So basically the sun's coming up from this direction over here, and I'm shooting sort of on the perpendicular to it, if you like, at 90 degrees. And what am I waiting for? I'm hoping these clouds, actually we're running out of clouds that are running behind the tree and into the scene, but I'm hoping that the clouds are going to just light a bit as the sun comes up. They're going to catch, which would be really nice. And then as the sun rises over the brow of this hill, hopefully it's going to light this tree up beautifully. It should make for a really good shot. I've been thinking about doing a bit of a project recently of lone trees in the local area, so I've decided that I'm going to make this one the first one and come out and give it a go. And yeah, if this is a success, then I may well continue it. I've got a bit of a thing for trees. I've always liked trees, so yeah, and we'll see how this one goes. So you may be asking yourself why I didn't upgrade to another Canon, why I didn't go for, say, the 5D Mark IV or the EOS R, or even the EOS R5 or 6. Well, firstly, the EOS R5 and 6 weren't released or announced when I first went for this, but equally they're way out of my price range anyway. The reason I didn't go for the 5D Mark IV is it's old tech. I wanted to go mirrorless. There's so many advantages now for me, I feel, in using a mirrorless camera. Also, the Sony kind of, for me, beats the Canon now in every respect. It's got much better image quality, it's got better dynamic range, it works better in low light, it's got brilliant ISO performance, and on top of all of that, the other thing that really drew me into this is the video capabilities of it. As I'm not just a photographer, I'm also a photography vlogger. I need a camera that's going to be able to give me flexibility when it comes to video. And the fact that this thing can, for a start, shoot 4K uncropped at 24 frames per second is excellent, but also can shoot 120 frames per second at 1080p. That's another bonus as well. So this camera really, for me, was yeah, a no-brainer over a Canon. It really is turning into a gorgeous morning now. The sun's just popping, well, the sun is almost up, I think, and it's just catching all these clouds. They're lit up all around the tree. Unfortunately, there's not too much going on over the tree, but there's a beautiful pink hue now that's just coming up, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So what I'm shooting on this is I'm actually shooting a panoramic image, because I don't think that just getting a single frame here is really going to do the tree justice. There's a beautiful sweep of the land here where it drops down sort of to where the tree is, and then sort of rises ever so slightly again. So there's a very, very shallow V. And I think that, you know, by trying to get as much of that in as possible, you're really emphasising the beauty of this curvature, if you like, with the tree as the main subject in the land. So yeah, I'm shooting it as a panoramic. Now, you could ask, why didn't I go for the A7iii or the A7iv, being as I'm a landscape shooter and they're 42 and I think 60 odd megapixels respectively. The main reason for that, if I'm completely honest with you, was cost. And it's not just the cost that you have to think about with the camera, because I could have picked up a Sony A7iii for probably £200 or £300 more than this one. But also I've got to think about the file sizes and the cost associated with that in terms of post-processing. So I'll probably need to buy some more storage, and I'll probably also need a more powerful computer, or put up with slow rendering times when I'm stitching together those panos I always seem to do. So I thought overall that the A7iii was the better bet, since it's only 24.2, I think, or 3 megapixel camera. And let me tell you, the resolution so far that I've experienced on this is absolutely fantastic anyway, even when you crop it in, because you can shoot in APS-C mode, so that you can basically just switch over as if you're shooting a crop sensor. And although that only shoots 10 megapixels, some of the shots that I've taken for my bird photography in that crop mode have been absolutely fantastic, pin sharp, absolutely pin sharp, and loads of detail even at 10 megapixels on this camera. So I'm well impressed with those capabilities, and I think the sensor on this is absolutely fantastic. So I did just want to say thank you to somebody who pointed this camera out to me. Actually, it's Christian Logan Browns. For some reason I assumed that the A7, I thought the R in the A7R meant full frame, and I assumed that the A7 was a crop sensor camera. So when I was looking at buying a new camera, I was initially sort of put off, because I thought, well, the A7R is reasonably expensive, the 3 and the 4, probably slightly out of my price bracket, plus the issues I was talking about as well with the 42 and higher megapixel count. But then Christian messaged me, and he said, you know, have you seen this? Because I mentioned it on the podcast about you know, looking for a new camera, and he said, have you seen the A7iii at the moment? And I said, well, I'm not interested, because I only want full frame. And he's like, well, this is a full frame. was like, oh, okay. So that then led me to look into it a lot more. So thank you very much, Christian. I really do appreciate that. You've pointed me in the direction of a really fantastic purchase. The other thing I wanted to talk about actually along with it is another reason why I went down the A7 III route as opposed to the A7R III or the A7R4. Well, that was way out of my price range, but is the fact that I'm a bit of a hybrid shooter. And when I say hybrid, I'm not talking about stills and video, although I am. I'm talking about the fact that I'm multi-genre, so I don't just shoot landscape photography. When there's no virus around, you know, I also shoot a bit of street photography, it's been known, and this camera is going to be fantastic for that as well because of its low light capabilities, because that means that I can go out at night and I can get those, you know, get those shots, and you can pull back a lot more detail. Also, another feature that's going to be really useful for this is that it's got a silent shutter. So I can be far less intrusive when I'm out doing my street photography if I wish. And the other thing as well about this is its size. It's not too big. It's much smaller than the old 5D Mark III, and it isn't that much bigger, to be honest with you, than my Sony A6000, which, let me tell you, I'm selling because I'm that impressed with this. I think it can do everything. And also for wildlife, again, I've used this for shooting in my back garden, you know, the bird photography that I've been doing, and I think it's 10 frames per second, and it also, again, silent shooting is absolutely fantastic. The crop, the APS-C mode on it, even though it's only 10 megapixel, the detail, as I mentioned, is brilliant. So for so many reasons, this camera really just suited exactly what I wanted. So I'm not going to lie, there are a few drawbacks to the camera. It isn't absolutely perfect. The EVF and the actual screen aren't the highest resolution. They're not easy sometimes to pick up detail with. With the adapter that I've got, the continuous focus won't work in video mode if you're shooting with the Canon lenses, which is probably only really a minor gripe, but it is going to mean that I'm going to have to get some native Sony lenses if I want to shoot video, which is my aim further down the line. The sensor is scarily open to the elements, so if you go out and you're out on a windy day or a rainy day and you take your lens off and replace it, you're very likely to get something on your sensor. Hopefully Sony are going to bring in a firmware update. They've done it on their A9, where the front curtain shuts down when you take the lens off, so hopefully they'll do something similar and roll that out for the A7 series, so that should stop that problem. And the other thing is, it's actually quite a complicated camera to get used to, and with the Canon, it was, you know, it was second nature. It was almost like an extension to my body, so I wasn't worried about having to work out anything at all on it because I knew where everything was. And I know that will come with time with this camera, but it is a complicated beast, and it does have an awfully deep menu system and quite confusing at times. But then you could argue that the customization on the camera is absolutely fantastic. You've got 4 customizable buttons that are specifically for that, plus you can pretty much customize every other button on there as well. So I've actually got a button that just jumps me into APS-C mode, a button that jumps me into silent shooting. I've got the ISO value, which is on the wheel dial, several other things I can't even think of right now. You know, and not to mention, I haven't even mentioned the fact that it's got eye autofocus, which is absolutely phenomenal and works for animals as well. So when you're out there taking photos of birds on the Sigma and it's actually picking up the eye and focusing on it continually, absolutely brilliant. So as you can probably tell, in conclusion, I'm very happy with this camera. I think I've made the right choice, and although I do miss my Canon, I did love Canon. I've always loved Canon. I don't think that I'm going to regret moving over to Sony. So I did wait in the end for the sun to rise over the top of that hill, and it did light the land really rather nicely, and it's lit the tree up as well, and I've managed to get a couple more shots. So I'm hoping that I've probably got 2 decent images here from this location, both exactly the same composition, just in different types of light. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this vlog. It was a bit of a chat really about why I've changed cameras, and remember, don't tell the other me that I've recorded this and put this out before that one, because he'll only get upset. Anyway, thanks ever so much for watching. I really hope that you've enjoyed it, and until next time, I'll see you again soon.